Time to time this year, I've wanted to fulfill a promise at the beginning of the year to give a picture of what Old Testament books are, and for a couple of reasons. One, so that we can be prepared when someone asks, well, what's that book about? You can give a brief description of it. But number two, it is important for us to be able to see these various writings in a way so that we can actually see the fulfillment that is in Christ. And that's not something that's usually done. Usually we just study and go, isn't that an interesting story? But I've wanted to focus on how this brings us to Christ, reminding you of 2 Timothy 3:14 and 15, where Paul told Timothy to continue in the sacred writings, which would make them wise unto salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. So we should be able to see Jesus throughout the Old Testament, and that's what we want to do this evening, is be able to relate this then to what God's plan was since before time began, and that's really then our purpose. So you can follow along with me. What we're going to talk about is a little bit of the story, but then insert in there the pictures that were intended for us to see in the kingdom and in Jesus. The first thing, pop this up on the screen here. The first thing I want to picture or note to you is a reminder that Samuel is one book. It's not two books, it's one book, so we keep that in mind. Same as Kings and same as Chronicles. These are one book. They're just divided up because they would be really big for a scroll, right? And so it's divided up that way, and we tend to think of 1 and 2 Samuel, where the Hebrews would think of Samuel, and they would think of Kings, and they would think of Chronicles. And the reason that's important is because the story doesn't end when you get done with 1 Samuel. The story is like, just stops, and you go, whoa, what happened? Well, that's because it really didn't stop. 2 Samuel is going to go ahead and complete the rest of the story. It's a complicated story in a lot of ways, and for that reason, my first thought was maybe I could do the whole Samuel. And then I decided we'd be here for 2 hours, and some child would probably kill its parents, so I didn't want that to happen. And then if it weren't that, the parent would, it would be one way or the other. Something has to give, so we don't want to do that. All right, so let's begin just with this particular thought. The last words we read of the book of Judges was there was no king in those days, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And this is just a continuation right after that. There's no king, and everyone did right in his own eyes. Well, what does that tell us? We need a king. We need somebody who's going to guide the people and shepherd the people. The passages we read this morning out of Ezekiel were actually referring to kings. The shepherds had failed Israel, and the shepherds are the kings of Israel. That's what God was referring to when he referred to the bad job they did, and that Jesus then would come and be the true shepherd. He would be the real shepherd, meaning he would be the king who would shepherd his people. So there's emphasis then in that, and we want to see now how God begins to rescue. How bad did things get during the Judges? As bad as they are today and worse. And so it was really, really tough, and God now to the rescue. Can God change Israel? Can God bring back and rescue his people? Can he get things back on track? And 1 Samuel then provides for us that particular hope. We begin, of course, and most of you know the story of how a man named Elkanah had two wives. Peninnah has children. Hannah does not have children. She's barren. The moment you read that Hannah doesn't have children, what should that click in your mind, and that she's barren? Ooh, God's going to rescue somebody. God's going to bring about a rescue, because that is typical throughout the Bible and all the way into the New Testament. Parallel with Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel, and the New Testament Elizabeth, and